Hello everyone, it's your Peacekeeper, and it's time for the next video in our How to Play series on the British Royal Navy battleships. This is the Tier 5 Orion class of battleships. The Orion class of battleships were a class of 4 planned and 4 completed dreadnought, or as some people will call them, super dreadnought, battleships built for the Royal Navy in 1909 through 1912. Now, the term super dreadnought is being applied to these ships because of the fact that they were much larger and heavier than the HMS dreadnought, and a large part of that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. The Orion class of battleships was the first class of battleships that was a clean slate design of battleships since HMS Dreadnought in 1906. As a result, the class was larger, had larger guns, and more armor. The biggest design change was inspired by the USS South Carolina and the South Carolina class, which is the super firing turret configuration, that being that one turret can fire over the turret in front of it. And you can see here that the AB turrets and the XY turrets can fire over each other. Or maybe that's YQ. AB, XY, I think it's YQ. Anyway, I'm going to call it the 1 and 2 and the 4 and 5 turrets. We're going with American layout here. Those turrets could fire over each other, and part of the reason why the Royal Navy was so slow to adopt this concept, there was something like 3 or 4 Dreadnought classes before Orion, between Orion and Dreadnought, is because they had real concerns over the firing hoods and the damage that would be caused by the muzzle blasts from the guns going off, causing the people who are actually in the turrets to either lose focus or to possibly even injure them. And so they really held off on this design for a very long time until they could be assured that the people inside the turret would not suffer ill effects from having this configuration. And of course, the US, we just kind of jumped on board. So they kind of took the idea, and here is the first ship in the class to have it. This is also one of the first British ships to actually have super firing turrets as well. The only thing that really carried over from the earlier designs was the location of the primary rangefinder above the funnel here for the engine room. And as was mentioned in the video before with Bellerophon, was basically had to it basically made things unbearable for the people that were actually up here in this forward fire control director, I guess the only fire control director. And at the time of their launching, this would have actually been a fighting top where it had a rangefinder in it, and they used that for their primary range finding. Now this has the fire control director up there, which would have been the experimental one that was on the Bellerophon. So in terms of service history, the start for Orion, Monarch, and Conqueror, which are 3 of the 4 ships that were in that class. The 4 ships, by the way, are Orion, Monarch, which used to be called the King George V, Conqueror, and Thunderer. So Orion, Monarch, and Conqueror began their careers with the interception of the German High Seas Fleet after British intelligence determined that they were going to launch raids on Scarborough, Hartlepool, and Whitby. Ordered to intercept with 3 other dreadnoughts and the 1st Battlecruiser Squadron under control of Vice Admiral Sir David Beatty, the forces came in contact with the German High Seas Fleet accidentally in the early morning darkness and in heavy weather on the 16th of December. The Germans were able to severely damage several British destroyers, but the German fleet turned away to avoid a potential counterattack later by the British destroyers. The Admiral von Hipper believed that the British were going to launch a counterattack at first light with their destroyers and did not want to risk the High Seas Fleet unnecessarily. The 3 ships never got into combat with the High Seas Fleet again until Jutland. At the Battle of Jutland, all 4 ships participated in the action as part of the main dreadnought force in the Grand Fleet. The 4 ships were basically at the head of the Royal Navy battle line, and Conqueror and Thunder were first into action. They fired upon the crippled light cruiser SMS Wiesbaden, and then on the German dreadnoughts in the line behind the Wiesbaden, but failed to score any hits on any of them. Monarch and Orion did not fire on Wiesbaden, but instead engaged the German dreadnoughts directly and managed to lightly damage the SMS König and the SMS Markgraf. They also struck the German battle cruiser SMS Lützow 5 times, causing significant damage to her. None of these ships really were all that heavily engaged during the battle, though, and none fired more than 57 rounds from their main battery during the whole battle. After Jutland, the ships remained as part of the Grand Fleet, but only sortied once more before the German surrender, and failed to find any action then in that one sortie. After World War I, Thunder and Orion entered service as training ships for naval cadets and gunnery training, while Orion and Conqueror were sold for scrap in 1922. Monarch would then go on to be converted into a floating hulk and used for bomb and gunnery practice. She was actually used to study the effects of bomb and gun damage to certain types of armor for future battleship designs, and she would actually be sunk in 1925. Thunder was scrapped in 1927 after her service. In terms of their in-game play style, Orion basically plays the same as Bellerophon before, and as all the other low-tier Royal Navy battleships do. And the ship has larger caliber guns. I still don't find the AP to be particularly impressive. Maneuverability is pretty good. Concealment is pretty good. So overall, it's an improvement, certainly over Bellerophon, but we're still looking at issues with accuracy, with damage penetration of the 13.5-inch main battery at longer ranges, and the ships still feel much stronger and a little bit more general purpose using HE over AP. And maybe that's just me in the way that the ship is playing. That's not to say that the AP is complete garbage like it was for me on Bellerophon. It's better, but it's not nearly as reliable. These ships also feature a pretty stout secondary battery, but being as it's low tier, chance of actually bringing that secondary battery into the engagement, pretty low. Let's talk about some stats. 42,700 hit points, up to 305 millimeters of armor. It's got a 16% torpedo damage reduction, and the main battery consists of 5 twin 13.5-inch or 343 millimeter 45 caliber Mark V guns. They have a main battery firing range of 16.7 kilometers, reload time of 30 seconds, and a glacial 180-degree turn time of 56.3 seconds. Dispersion is alright at 227 meters. That HE shell damage, 5,900 for a Citadel, AP at 9,500 for a Citadel. Fire chance of 40%, which, as you can imagine at these low tiers, is quite high. Secondary battery, we got 16 single 4-inch gun mounts. These things just litter the sides of this ship. There are 8 of them per side. And these aren't the only 4-inch gun mounts that come up. We've got the 4-inch 45 caliber gun mounts above it. There's 4 twins, and there's going to be 2 of those per side. And those main battery, 3.5 kilometers for both of them is what your secondary range is going to be. So not a whole lot of range, but if you ever do get into that up close and personal knife fight, which with these ships I really don't recommend, you got enough secondaries there to at least discourage some of it. You can definitely start some fires with it. 6% fire chance and 3-second reload. That's not too bad. Well, I guess these have a little bit longer reload, but AA defense, it's not too bad. It's not great either. It's a tier 4 battleship, let's be honest here. The primary DPS from the anti-aircraft battery is going to come primarily from the 4-inch gun mounts, the 4 dual gun mounts. That would be these mounts, and a little bit of 40 millimeter action here coming from these 4 single 40 millimeter gun mounts. It would have been interesting to see those things in real life. Those had to be reasonably impressive firearms. And then of course we have the 50 caliber machine guns here. That pretty impressive looking mount, not very impressive amount of damage. 4 quad ones of those. Your AA bubble starts out at 5 kilometers and steps down to 2.5, then 1.2 kilometers. Max speed of 22 knots. turning radius of 610 meters, rudder shift time of 12.5 seconds. So very tight turning radius, very US standard battleship style in how tight it turns and how quickly it turns. Unlike the US standards, though, the ship's armor just does not really feel up to par with what the ship's damage output could be. And so as a result, the ship takes a lot of damage and really doesn't have much to show for it. Concealment range by sea, 12 kilometers. By air, 8.6 kilometers. Let's talk about some upgrades. The first upgrade slot, I'm going to be taking Main Armaments Mod 1, and that's because at this tier, there's really not enough AA to really buff. And the secondaries, well, they're never going to really come into use. I mean, I guess there's very limited times that it could come in use, but the only other option here would have been Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1. I mean, get Magazine Mod 1 if you're worried about going hood and detonating. You could take this. This is going to reduce your chance of detonation by 70%. Personally, though, I'm going to run Main Armaments Mod 1 for the 20% reduction in the chance of your main battery becoming incapacitated, 50% increase in its hit point pool, and a 20% reduction in the time it takes to repair them. The only other slot that we have access to here, I'm going to run Damage Control Systems Mod 1 for the 3% reduction in the chance of flooding, as well as damage received when you get hit by a torpedo, as well as a 5% reduction in the chance of being started on fire. These other two options, which are basically a 20% reduction of your engine or rudder being incapacitated and a 20% reduction in the time it takes to repair your engine or rudder, depending on whether you choose propulsion or steering gears Mod 1. You're a battleship. If your rudder or engine gets taken out, it's not nearly as big as a deal as it is on other ships are, and as a result, you really don't end up using these skills on battleships very often, but you do get set on fire all the time, and you unfortunately have a tendency to take torpedoes, so that would be my recommendation there. And with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start talking about how this ship plays in battle. So let's get to that battle video. Alright, so this battle is going to actually be a Tier 4, Tier 5 fight, and it is on Archipelago. And this is actually a really fun map. I'm glad that this map has come around to kind of even out some of the boringness in the map rotation of Tier 4 and Tier 5. Now, it's been a while since this map came out, so I guess it might be a slight bit of revisionist history on my part, but I really do enjoy this map. It is one of my favorite maps, and on this one we have the 3 capture points, which is fantastic. This battle usually revolves around a fight between either A, B, or B, C. It just kind of depends on how the teams, stack out. And usually on this map, I have a tendency to go towards the C cap. I just find that usually when you're in the northern team, the team that spawns on the north, the other team tends to go A, B more frequently than they go B, C. And so that's the direction that, at least the plan, that's where I normally go here. And we can see we're traversing guns right, so that we can bring all of our guns to bear on any ships that would be broadside to us in the A or B cap. We are still pointed towards B, kind of trying to figure out where our friendlies are going to go, and there are 2 carriers in this match to add an even higher level of interest in what is going on. And overall, though, I mean, the ship plays a lot like New York, which makes sense. It's a little bit more powerful than Wyoming, which, in my opinion, is a little bit sad. Dear power creep. U.S. battleships need some attention at the low tiers. And I guess part of that is because it does have larger caliber guns. But it does play an awful lot like the New York. You can see the design similarities between the 2 ships, and it's actually quite striking how similar they really are. There's a lot less superstructure here, but with the Texas nearby, you can see just how close these ships were. I mean, the turret layout is absolutely identical. 1 funnel versus 2 funnel, fire control locations, very different, but overall, very interesting ship design. And, well, looks like the enemy team is kind of doing meh, whatever. That's about what this team is doing. Actually, this team is pushing hard and fast into B, which is an interesting one. So we got ourselves nice Akaze here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to engage him with some AP and see what we can do. Now, look at that. That shot dispersion's pretty good. 4,900 damage, though. 1 normal pen, 3 overpens. I guess at this tier I really shouldn't complain too loudly because, well, that is like basically 60% of the, or 40% of the hit point pool of an Isakaze. So here we've got ourselves Emile Bertin, which is a French cruiser. It is a tier 5 French cruiser. It is by far one of the best tier 5 cruisers in the game. He keeps turning away. Well, that's unfortunate. I was really hoping we'd be able to get a AP salvo off on him because Emile Bertin has literally 13 millimeters of outer hull plating, followed up by another 13 millimeters of belt armor behind it, and I missed. Boy, that's embarrassing. Well, since he's going to be broadside to us for quite a long time, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to come close to this island here. Maybe we'll get lucky and Mr. Königsberg. Germans and their interesting pronunciations. You say it right. Okay. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and continue shooting at him overpen for 950 damage. Not really off to a very good start here, or reliable start with the AP, but will it improve? Well, no, because my gunnery is flat out terrible right now. What about this Wyoming? I mean, they're pushing pretty hard to the south now. We've got some of our battleships that are kind of scattering to the north. It makes me a little nervous as to what the future of this battle is going to be like. With only one turret up, we should probably hold our fire a little bit. Ooh! Now we're accepting fire from all sorts of directions. We got some torpedoes in the water. Some torpedoes. They aren't coming towards us, just proxy spotting them or having the warning go off, but here we are. We're going to go ahead and we're going to shoot at this broadside Wyoming at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we lost a turret due to the rock. One normal pen for 3,100 damage. That's really not all that good. We're not going to be winning any fights with AP right now at this range on the Wyoming. And we are, well, we're taking damage faster than we're dealing it. That's never a good sign, especially since I am beached basically broadside. And that makes for very uncomfortable conversations, especially when we have torpedo bombers in the area. Oh boy. Well, maybe we'll get lucky. Well, there's 4,000, 4,100 basically there up against that Wyoming. Gonna go ahead and start traversing the guns the other way, and if you're not familiar with the reasons why, well, it has a lot to do with the fact that basically there's not really a whole lot of other choice. If I don't start traversing my guns the other way when I go to turn around, oh boy. Carrier bringing aircraft in. Accelerate! Get those people down there with the oars! Oh, this isn't going to be good. This is not going to be good. We're for sure going to get 2. Most likely 3. And 3. Well, there's half our hit points gone in one salvo. And what's this? Oh boy. You're going to eat another one? No. Whew. Managed to avoid eating another torpedo, but here we are. We are currently dealing with the problem. Oh my goodness, dive bombers. Go away, carrier. Oh, well, nope. Of course he would land a fire, because why not? Well, we're not off to a very good start. Things are looking kind of bleak. Need to really start focusing down some ships and getting some ships out of this fight, because we are down. They have killed more ships than we have. Of course, the Isakaze throws out torpedoes, but I was expecting that. Not before I end up taking him out of this fight. So there goes their first ship that I kill. We are at basically 15,000 damage, so nothing really exciting to write home about. And at this point, we're stuck with very few options. The ship will not tank damage like the German battleships will, or the U.S. battleships will, or even the Japanese battleships will. They are very, very soft, and as a result, they tend to take a lot of damage. Thankfully, they do have a decent repair party, and they don't quite get the full ridiculous repair party at this tier. So, yeah, okay, Langley shows up. Langley's, gosh dang it, stop disappearing. Kaiser, that's stationary. Okay. Oh, yeah, I don't know. Oh, well, we'd already switched to HE. You know what that means. It's time to get more reliable with our damage dealing. Well, we started him on fire, and look, 3,800 damage in 3 hits. Well, 5 hits, I guess, technically. So for the same number of hits, we're doing basically the same amount of damage. The only difference is we're now adding in fires to this mix. Ooh, we managed to disappear off the map. That's unusual. We're going to take advantage of that, though, at least briefly, until we can get a pretty good shot lined up on this Wyoming. Now, normally I would not advocate for shooting HE at the broadside of a Wyoming, but let's be honest here. Not exactly succeeding in doing anything else. Oop, 2 fires, so I'm hoping that the Wyoming... No, he repaired it right away. Really unfortunate for me. Would love to have having him eaten. Oh boy. Well, he returned the favor. There's a fire. Not enough hit points. We're going to burn the repair party, the damage control party right away. Usually pretty risky, especially when we still got aircraft floating around in the area. Pretty good dispersion, though. Overall, not too shabby. If we can get a fire on this Wyoming, it would be continuous damage. It would help boost our damage output quite substantially. Our team is quite literally falling apart, although ship count-wise, we're even up. We're falling apart because, well, we've just now started capping, and it doesn't seem like our carriers are having much luck getting through. And that leaves us with some very limited options of what we can do. We're going to continue to engage this Wyoming. Again, his damage control party is going to be down. If we could get a fire started on him, that'd be great. I will certainly take, cap resets. That's also very, very useful. And trying to motion there to the carrier to get his fighters over that way, but I don't think he's going to get his fighters over in time to really help. There is a Kaiser over there that is being a pain in the butt. We are exposing a broadside to, and thankfully we managed to find this Texas just in time to take some of the heat off, literally me, from both guns and aircraft. So the torpedo bombers, well, they're still coming to me, but they're spending a lot of time in Texas's AA bubble, and this is a mistake on behalf of the carrier. And down he goes! The other Orion manages to kind of come into this fight finally and bring his AA to bear, and we were able to take out the anti-aircraft, or take out the aircraft threat with our anti-aircraft fire. Oop, fire on the Kaiser. If he doesn't repair it, fantastic, we'll get damage. If he does repair it, fantastic. That means we can start him on fire multiple times again. And, again, this ship plays really, really well when it's played in I would call it a more passive role, and it's very contradictory to where I think battleships should be. And I know I'm not the only person who feels that way. There's a lot of players who are, I don't want to say sick of the Royal Navy battleships and their existence, but they don't have the same ability to tank and support for the team that other nations' battleships do. It was a design choice by Wargaming, apparently, to make their armor, they take HE damage in ways that I did not know battleships could take HE damage, except for, of course, Kongou dealing it. Oop, see, there's a whole pile of HE damage there with a fire. Okay, we're going to continue shooting at the Kaiser. 1,900 damage. I'm still not convinced that this ship would have done more than 1,900 damage to this Kaiser had I actually been switching to AP. Now, the upside to this is the New York and the other battleship over there with him. I think it's 2 New Yorks, isn't it? Looks like it. Those 2 ships are basically putting themselves out of the fight for a little bit. They got that island over there. We're going to do our best to angle, but look, really not doing too well on angling. 7,000 damage to the Kaiser. He looks like he is going to just barely survive with next to no hit points. You're going to go ahead and tell people that they need to... Oh, he got started on fire by the Omaha. Good shots by the Omaha. Oh, it's an Iron Duke. So a New York and an Iron Duke. Now, the Iron Duke is the Tier 5, and I've heard really good things about it. I'm looking forward to it. We got our AP loaded because broadside battleship, but is it going to make a bit of a difference? Well, not really. 3,400 damage. We are up to 43,964 though, and now we've got some broadside battleships to shoot at. So let's demonstrate our AP prowess, or lack thereof, or mediocre thereof, and see what we can come up with. You'll notice not a whole lot of lead on these. The US battleships are very slow. Really hoping, because New York has very weak armor, that we get a Citadel hit in here. No, 1,700 damage. Overled him just a little bit, so now I know. Don't lead him so much. Gonna continue our push over here, hopefully towards B. If nothing else, we're gonna get into these islands and we're going to delay their ability to return fire on us. And, oh, New York, he's starting to turn away. Come on, New York, I want you to stay broadside to me. He's got a little bit of an angle away, but nothing major. Well, 5,000 damage. I'll take that. Got ourselves a Wyoming over here that could use removal from the game, though. He has just enough hit points to be annoying, and I don't know if the Omaha's going to survive being broadside to him for too long. You can see we've loaded up HE already. Apparently I got frustrated there with the way the AP was working. Who would have thought? I really want this Omaha to stay alive. Oh, dang! Our Koenig decided to join the fight, and, well, he got his payback for the light damage, I guess. Caused the... I wasn't shooting in Orion, he was shooting in a Wyoming. Yeah. Alright, so this leaves us with a New York, an Iron Duke, and 2 carriers to shoot at. So we got some damage to do here. We got 2 caps. Oop, there's Langley. There's the other Langley. Well, that's always a good sign. There's a fire started and 4,700 damage to help support our Orion that's over there. And if I was in that Orion shoes, I'd be weighing my options a little bit more heavily here. Do I want to continue to push in and take out this New York and then follow it up with the Iron Duke? Or do I want to do something else? It's a real hard decision to make. I don't blame him for making the decision that he makes to continue pushing in and pushing on the fight. So a couple takeaways so far. Basically, there's a fire there. 5,800 damage on a Langley with HE. Really? A couple takeaways so far from here. You saw that no amount of angling really stops you from accepting damage from other ships, especially battleships at this tier. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. That's one of the harder aspects of this ship, is to play it in such a way that you can actually succeed in mitigating damage. It has the same problem that a lot of the Japanese battleships have, in that basically, down goes a carrier. Basically, you have enough heavily armored locations on your ship to accept normal penetrations, and then not enough. You've got plenty of hit points in those same areas to also accept a lot of damage. It's a really awkward and not so awesome configuration. You never get fully comfortable with, Omaha surviving that again. There's 12,005 damage. Wow. Could have used more of those earlier in the match. Confederate with that. You just never seem to be able to mitigate any of the damage you take. You just always are taking huge amounts of damage, and it gets real old real fast on these ships. And this isn't the only ship in the line that does that. I mean, I've played a couple games in Conquer. I was able to get up to it. We're gonna try and repeat that 12,005 damage. 13,740. Wow. Well. We managed to sink him. I didn't get the kill. That's unfortunate. Overall, I'm okay with this ship as a tier 4 battleship. It's not too terrible. Like I said, it gets frustrating not being able to mitigate damage in any way. 1369 base XP, a pretty even split. Well, mostly AP shells there. The last 2 salvos really, really hurt. But you really got to be picky with your AP on this ship, and if you're not, well, use HE all the time. It's pretty reliable. Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.